We hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, it's 6 o'clock. I'm Michelle Dewberry and this is Dewbs & Co, the show where we'll get into some of the things that have got you talking today. Now, if you've been to fill up your car, if you have, you might be in for a bit of a shock because the price of petrol and diesel has jumped again, thanks to uncertainty re Russia and Ukraine. Let's be honest though, right? Other things are going to be impacted by all this too. So I'm wondering, how do we best protect ourselves against these uncertain times? And in what's been called the biggest university shake-up in a decade, it's proposed that pupils who fail GCSE English and Maths, that'll be me then, will not be eligible for a student loan. What do you reckon? Sensible or silly? And by the way, why are so many young people obsessed with going to university? And would you want to know if your 13-year-old child was having sex? And if you would, let's hope that you don't live in Scotland, because new national guidelines there say that the privacy of children who think that they are in safe and mutually respectful relationships should have their privacy protected. Should they? And we've all seen the outrageous goings-on in Canada against the protesters. Liberal Western leaders have been pretty much silent. Why? We'll have all that to come, but first, the latest news headlines.
Good evening, I'm Tamsin Roberts in the GB newsroom. The Prime Minister has announced further military support for Ukraine following the threat of a full-scale invasion. Boris Johnson told MPs defensive weapons will be sent to Kiev as a result of Russia's aggressive behaviour. Our security editor Mark White reports.
In the trenches overlooking Ukraine's rebel-held areas, soldiers say they've been coming under increased mortar fire. Another Ukrainian serviceman is reported to have been killed today and several more injured. It follows a funeral in Kiev for a soldier killed at the weekend. So far, the shelling is coming from rebel fighters. For the moment at least, there is no sign of Russian troops. In the comments, the Prime Minister said it wasn't too late for Russia to pull back from the brink.
What we want to see, Mr. Speaker, is de-escalation by Vladimir Putin. There's still hope that he will see sense, but we are ready very rapidly to escalate our sanctions as I have set out.
In Moscow, even as his troops wait to cross into Ukraine, Vladimir Putin said he was still open to negotiation.
Our country stays open for direct and honest dialogue, for the search of diplomatic solutions for the most complex issues.
In rebel-held Donetsk, there are no signs of Russian tanks yet, but many locals say they'll welcome their arrival.
I think there will be radical changes in everything. Maybe peace can finally come. The shooting has stopped, and for us, this is the most important.
We'll pull through the economic adversities. We'll weather it by ourselves.
As Western governments begin implementing sanctions against Moscow, they warn any further Russian aggression will be met with even tougher measures. Mark White, GB News.
Well, Ukraine is set to declare a 30-day state of emergency and announce compulsory military service for all men of fighting age. Government websites have also crashed, with authorities suggesting it's the result of a cyber attack. Speaking at the United Nations in New York, the country's Foreign Minister, Dmytro Kuleba, asked for swift action to contain Russian aggression.
Ukraine has never planned and does not plan any military offensive in the Donbas. Neither any provocations or acts of sabotage, as Russia attacked the very fundamental principles of international peace and security, the pillars of the United Nations, and, as I mentioned, the very existence of the Ukrainian state, a founding member of the United Nations.
EU leaders are due to hold an emergency summit tomorrow on the crisis. NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg has warned Europe's facing a dangerous security situation.
We will continue to provide Ukraine with strong political, practical and financial support to help Ukraine build their defense capabilities, modernize their defense and security institutions, and uphold their right to self-defense.
On to other news now. A rapist who carried his victim through Leeds before attacking her has been given a life sentence. Austin Osande was captured on CCTV walking through deserted streets with the woman in his arms in August 2015. He was only caught last September after assaulting another woman whilst working as a delivery driver. He's been jailed for life with a minimum term of 16 years. Staffordshire Police have renewed their appeal for help to find a teenager who's been missing since Saturday. CCTV footage shows 19-year-old Emmy Robson, who was last seen in Weston in Crewe at around 7 p.m. wearing a red hoodie, black jogging bottoms and black trainers. The UK is facing more bad weather with strong winds and heavy snow set to hit the UK this week. It comes after 3 storms battered the UK over recent days. 2 severe flood warnings are still in place for the River Severn, which has now peaked. The Environment Agency's West Midlands spokesperson, Nick Green, says in Bewdley the water won't start receding until tomorrow.
There's a huge amount of water in the River Severn, all the way up from Bewdley up into Shropshire, Shrewsbury Way, and that water's got to come through. Still, will keep the peak up. You won't be able to see the river drop dramatically if you stood here, but if you came here tomorrow, it will have dropped by a fair few centimetres.
This is GB News on TV, online and DAB+ radio. Now let's get straight back to Dewbs & Co.
Thanks for that. Well, I mean, goodness me, did you see that video just then on the headlines of that man, that rapist, let's call him what he is, carrying that lady off to be raped? I mean, goodness me, well, thank God he's been caught and locked away. I mean, minimum 16 years of a life sentence. Personally, I would say you're never coming out again. That's what I would say if I was in charge of the country. But for many of you, you might be thankful that I'm not. Anyway, keeping me company on my panel tonight, Michael Heaver, who's the political commentator, Kevin Craig, who's the Labour councillor and CEO of PLMR, and the sociologist at Swansea University, Ashley Frawley. And you know the drill by now on Dewbs & Co. It's not just about us and our thoughts, it's about you at home and yours. Get in touch with me. What is on your mind tonight? You can email gbviews@gbnews.uk. Or you can tweet me at Michelle Dewbs or at GB News. Don't forget, of course, already, if you haven't, get yourself over to YouTube, hit subscribe. You can watch us live there. You can get the best bits. You know, you can do whatever you want, really. And if you're watching there live already, good evening to you. Don't forget as well, I often don't mention this on this programme, but you can listen to us on the radio, not just watch on TV. So if you're dying to go out, but you don't want to miss Dewbs & Co., take me with you. We are on DAB. We'll follow you around wherever you go. I love it. Right, let's talk about our main story, shall we? The average UK petrol and diesel prices have hit new highs as the Ukraine crisis continues to affect oil prices. Oil and gas prices have jumped after Russia ordered troops into 2 Ukrainian regions this week to, and I have to quote, maintain peace. UK wholesale gas prices also jumped following Germany's decision on Tuesday to halt the final approval of Nord Stream 2, which is, of course, the gas pipeline connecting the country with Russia. The UK has said it's ready to impose further sanctions in the event of a full invasion on Ukraine. But what will be the impact on here in the UK, and what on earth can we do? Because this isn't just going to be, of course, about fuel. We're going to potentially see rising prices of a whole spectrum of things. Michael Heaver, how do we even protect ourselves against some of this stuff?
Well, look, when you look at what's going on right across Europe, and particularly with Germany at the moment, I mean, it serves as a real warning. The net zero green religion, I think, is being exposed. It's colliding with cold, hard reality, which is the fact that you've had Germany now pausing Nord Stream 2, with Europe about 40% of natural gas reliant on Russia. You had the insanity in Germany with closed nuclear plants. Now their minister today, who's actually from the Green Party in that governing coalition, no less, has announced that the German government are going to be abolishing the renewables levy on electricity bills. I suspect the green levies in this country need to be taken away sharpish as well. And just consider the fact, when you hear people in this country make the argument against fracking, against shale gas, against energy independence for the UK, it's forecast in this country by 2030, we're going to be reliant on gas imports for 70%. 70% reliance on gas imports by 2030. If we continue on the road we're going down in this country, we need to become much more self-reliant, self-sufficient on energy, fracking and shale gas.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin, Michael is right, in my mind anyway, when it comes to being self-reliant. You know, I don't want to bring this back to Brexit because it's not a Brexit thing, but I do recall the Brexit kind of conversation, and it was all about, if you were a Brexiteer, you were all about being a little Englander, nationalism was a dirty word, and we were all told that we had to be globalised and outward looking and all the rest of it. But actually, that's all well and good when the world works. When the wheels start coming off out there in the big bad world, it would be quite sensible, some would say, to be more self-reliant, surely.
Well, yes, I think everybody, wherever they are politically, wants us to be self-reliant. And this, is, to me, is not a discussion about whether we love our country or not. When what we just heard, Michelle, from Michael, and thanks for Brexit, Michael, because it's working out very well so far. But basically, what we heard just then, he didn't answer. The question was about energy prices, not a deconstruction of German government policy. And what really is the issue here is that as a result of what's gone on in the Ukraine, things, as trivial as it sounds, but it's important, fish and chips, a portion could hit 10 quid a go. And that's got, you know, that's a real worry. I don't think there's much more that can be done at the moment than the strongest possible international sanctions against Putin. But this is not about this energy rise here. Long term, yes, we want to be self-sufficient, but let's not distract ourselves. This is as a result of what's going on with Russian foreign policy, not German decisions to take sanctions.
But people say we want to be energy independent and they're against fracking.
But the planet's warming up. You're not talking. The planet's. Have you mentioned global warming yet?
So how do you want us to be energy independent then?
Answer the question.
Have you got a plan?
Answer the question.
We need fracking.
How's the planet's health?
How's the planet's health?
You're trying to deflect attention by saying, actually, it's not about the policies of this country. It is about the policies in this country. Trying to blame it on Ukraine is an attempt to deflect attention from the fact that we don't have a serious energy policy in this country for nuclear, for fracking, and that means that we are going to have prices, we're going to have inflation. That's just a basic
we do have
economic
an energy policy, though.
A serious one that isn't based on renewables, that essentially commit us to forms of energy that are unreliable.
Are you all against renewable energy then? Against wind, against solar? Is that
it's not about...
It's part of it, isn't it? But are you pro-fracking or not?
Pro-fracking?
You're not. You're not, are you? Because what keeps happening is people say, I want to be energy independent, but then you're against fracking and against shale gas.
Mate.
So you've got to actually commit to having a plan.
You're
so
shouting.
Are you pro-fracking?
You're shouting. That's better. Right. I'm not particularly...
Oh, I like a little bit of spice at 13 minutes past 6.
I'm not... What do you mean, what a surprise?
Because I knew you were going to say that.
Well, hang on.
That's obvious.
You can laugh, but you haven't said yet if you're worried about the planet overheating. Are you worried about that?
Yes, so I'm worried about the future, and I'm worried about energy independence and the fact that we're going to be importing 70% gas imports by 2030.
At all worried about the planet?
What's your plan?
At all worried about the planet?
What's your plan?
Worried about the planet?
You're going to keep repeating yourself. What's your plan? You're anti-fracking. What's your plan? You haven't got one, have you? You haven't got an alternative.
Hang on.
So that's what happens.
Gentlemen.
Calm him down, will you?
We like respectful disagreement on this one. Right, Ashley, let's get some good old woman common sense going on.
I think it's important that we do need to think about the future. We do need to think about global warming. On the other hand, we are sabotaging serious attempts to actually deal with that. I mean, nuclear policy is in the bin. And that's the most realistic. We're serious. We're not going to go, we're going to move forward as, human beings. We're going to have progress. We need to seriously think about having a serious nuclear policy. And yet you see Germany has moved away from this. What we're doing right now is trying desperately to turn the attention away from the disastrous effects of policy, not just in the UK, but elsewhere in Europe, by saying, oh no, actually it's the Russians. I don't think anyone's going to fall for it.
Okay, Ashley, just a point of detail then. Ashley says there's no serious energy policy in this country. It's not my job to stand up for what the Conservative government's currently doing. But if you look at what's happening on the east of England at Sizewell, serious attempts there to use more and more nuclear power safely. So it's these broad assertions we can chuck out, but it's no one's interested in deflecting challenges about energy. The fact is, does anyone disagree that what's happening in the Ukraine is leading to a further spike in energy prices?
It's going to be a small part of it, but this was on the agenda a long time ago. People were forecasting this last year. Acting like it's come out of nowhere is a clear attempt to deflect attention.
And I'll repeat the point, it's a forecast now that by 2030, 70% reliance on gas imports. Either you're pro-fracking and shale gas, or you're happy with that. That's basically the choice.
No, it isn't.
So what's your alternative then?
The way you frame this debate...
You haven't named a single alternative to shale gas, have you?
But let him answer it then.
What's the alternative?
If it's possible
let him answer it. Go on, Kevin.
The way you frame the debate is not actually accurate. It suits your shouty debate style tonight, but the fact is...
Answer?
Fracking...
Michael, let him answer.
I answered, right. Fracking, I'm not particularly in favour because of the damage it does to the environment. Let me finish. But energy policy, more renewables, solar, wind, and then we at the moment 5% of our gas comes from Russia. And of course, prices have gone up because of what's happened in foreign policy. But you all here tonight don't want to seem to accept that.
Of course, renewables is what's boosting and actually raising energy prices because that's the green levies.
That's what I mean by not having a serious policy. That's exactly what I'm talking about. These are unreliable. It's a commitment to labour-intensive and very expensive forms of energy.
It's a way to increase the cost, not decrease it.
Is there any chance he could stop shouting over this side, Michelle?
Yes, Michael.
Oh, dearie me.
Listen, I am interested in everyone's opinions on this panel, but I am also very passionate about respectful debate. So we do have to make sure that we are letting each other speak, that we are hearing each other. I'm also, by the way, interested in what you guys think at home. Michael, you started off by calling it a net zero religion as well. And again, I always ask you this question at home. What do you think about net zero? And is the time, crucially, is the time now to be putting these levies, etc., on the bills? And when we talk about renewables, it's all very well, by the way, isn't it, when the wind blows and the sun shines? Okay. But what do we do when those two things don't happen? Barnes says, never mind you lot, the rise in energy prices. What about the cost of wheat, grain and oils, etc.? He says, I can see that being a much bigger short-term problem for the whole of Europe if this gets worse. I think that you are absolutely spot on there, Barn. So what do we do about that? I mean, how do we actually get rid of some of our dependency on overseas producers and look inwardly at home? Let's ask briefly the panel that. Forget energy for just a moment. Let's talk, shall we, about food, the food supply chain, etc. Michael, how do we become more self-sufficient in that side of things?
Well, buying British, I think, helps. I think one of the remarkable things that we never hear from sort of green campaigners in this country is about how does it make sense that we import so much food, which, of course, uses so much energy. So I think backing British industry, backing British producers as much as we possibly can is a sensible way to do it. And, of course, that in turn increases, sort of decreases how reliant you are when we have turmoil across the world.
Ashley?
I think we need to back away also from some of the disastrous kind of approaches to food in general, that there's this idea that it would be great for the environment if everyone would just stop eating meat, which sounds good on paper, except that if you're not going to eat meat, you need to get your energy sources from all sorts of different places, like avocados, which take up an enormous amount of water. You need to clear a ton of forest in order to get what the human diet needs that it gets from meat. You need to replace it with an enormous amount of variety, and I'm not certain that it does makes a big difference. So I think, trying to get away from this move toward vegetarianism and this idea that it's all good to be green, it's just going to raise food prices.
We need meat.
Kevin?
Of course we do.
We need meat. I love meat, right? But again, I think I've heard Ashley say that she doesn't believe that if fewer people eat meat, it will be better for the planet. I would argue that is a fact, that less meat consumption is better for the planet. But as you asked the question, Michelle, as our host and leader, you asked about food prices, right? And it's a fact that and people might not want to hear this, but the Brexit process is going to lead to fewer British farmers producing food. They're all changing the use of their land because Brexit messed up the subsidy system and they're all going bust. So again, Michael, well done, mate, in your role as a Brexit.
Oh,
MEP.
do you really? So this was the sort of sourness that we get from hardline Remainers who just still won't accept the fact that we voted for Brexit. Mate. We've got one hell of an amazing opportunity now ahead of us as an independent country. You've already seen that with the vaccine rollout, and you're just determined to be miserable. It's such a shame.
I'm happy.
We should get behind the post-Brexit future, because guess what? We ain't going back into the EU.
Right, I'll tell you what we are. I'll tell you what we are getting behind, and that's the break. I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, I've got lots to talk about. Students, I want to talk to you about student loans. I want to talk to you about what on earth is going on in Scotland when it comes to kids. You've got all of the census. You've got what some people are saying is the informal kind of lowering of the age consent. We've got Trudeau. We've got lots of stuff coming up. I'll see you in just a couple of minutes.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, welcome back to Dewbs & Co with me, Michelle Dewberry. Lots of you guys getting in touch about that last conversation that we were having then. Lots of that centred around energy. Alan says, yes, we do need to be self-sufficient, but we have to have the means to be so. So he would suggest delaying green until such time. Chloe says, I'm not worried about the planet. I'm worried about being able to afford my energy bills and keep us warm and fed and in clean clothes. Stephen says there should be a referendum so that the people decide, not the government. He goes on to say scrap the green tax. Well, there you go. Do keep your thoughts coming in. But for now, let's move on to a different topic, shall we? The government is looking at banning student loans for those who fail their English and Maths GCSE in a bid to reduce the number of people going to university. What do you think to this? I mean, you will all, of course, remember, won't you, the whole Tony Blair, it was all about education, education, education. Well, it seemed to work because, quite frankly, the number of people going to university or applying to go to university is going up and up and up. But what's the outcome of that? There's lots of conversations as well around so-called Mickey Mouse degrees. And these new plans, by the way, that will be going out to consultation, they're not just around these kind of minimum entry requirements, but they'll also be looking at how do you stop these, as I've just said, Mickey Mouse degrees. Ashley Frawley, I mean, there's a lot to unpick here, but, you know, go at it where you will. Why are so many people going to uni? Should we have these kind of entry requirements of GCSEs? And what do you do about Mickey Mouse degrees? Pick any of those you want.
Well, young people have been told that if they don't go to university, then their future is basically tossed away. It's one of the only options that you're kind of told is available for you. But I don't think that that this plan to kind of ensure that people who fail maths and English GCSEs don't get loans is going to help, because yes, we do need to raise standards. But the reason why we have lower standards is way down the line. It's got nothing to do, well, it's got something to do with letting students in, but there's an incentive to do that, right? I mean, universities need to get bums on seats. That's what they have to do. And so the incentive is to just let anybody in. And then when you get there, students are told, well, you've got to be a consumer. You've got to demand, you've paid for this product, you demand your degree. And so, lecturers, I've seen this myself, with colleagues across the country, lecturers who hold the line and try not to inflate the grades, they get punished. They get very severely punished. It's extremely stressful. Students will actually complain and ask for their work to be reassessed. And that's not their fault. I mean, they're told everything is riding on this. If you don't get a first-class degree, forget about it. I mean, the situation is so complex that just doing this one little thing is just going to basically punish students for a problem that's much deeper within the higher education system and with, how we invest in the future in this country generally.
Kevin?
Well, I think the particular point that I was troubled with by this story is that it talks about punishing effectively those kids who didn't get the right grades in the GCSEs from studying further, and I think that's wrong. I don't have such an issue with the fact that these days more people go to university. I do defer to Ashley as a working academic that there is definitely a more commercial pressure on a lot of universities these days. That I've seen, who don't have, especially those without big endowments, to get bums on seats. But I don't like this because I'm less troubled by some than the fact that more people go to uni than used to. I don't think this particular punishment is fair to those who might want to go on further and who've got bad GCSEs for whatever reason. And I think that's quite a backward-looking step, so I don't think it's great.
Michael, your thoughts?
I think one of the tragedies of our education system in recent years has been this encouragement of so many kids to go to uni, because what's happened is they've ended up with a big bundle of debt and not much to show for it, because it actually hasn't helped them in the workplace get a job that would be higher paying, because you've had a saturation of people who may have degrees where there's not enough jobs essentially to go around for people that have got that qualification. What I think we need to be looking at is a system whereby kids are much more encouraged to go and earn a trade, go and earn real money. In a lot of cases, by the way, that is what's happened. People that go and earn a trade, learn a trade and then set up a company can be earning good money compared to people that go to uni, come out with a big bundle of debt. And by the way, I know people like this, that, they're not happy about this situation, that they've been encouraged by the government to go and do this and ended up almost with worthless degrees in some cases. Yeah, they might have had a good time. I definitely had a good time at university and stuff. But ultimately, people are not, young people coming out with a lot of debt and not much to show for it ain't a good thing. I personally think we need to see grammar schools brought in alongside vocational colleges. We need to play to the strengths of children, not tell them that, academics good and anything else is less good. But we need to play to the strengths by identifying what kids, are best at, and ultimately getting them into a situation where when they leave education system, they end up with a job that pays well, they can look after their families, they can have a fruitful life. That ultimately, I think, is what the education system should be about.
I think also part of the problem too is that we have all of these metrics to try and create this market, and that what winds up happening is universities, rather than providing a really challenging degree, well, then why do that? Right? Because that means that more students are going to fail. So then you start just chasing the metrics. And I think that's actually really inhumane, because one of the things that we're supposed to do is ensure that when we allow students in, that we retain them, which is good, except that I actually think it's better to allow a student to fail in the first year rather than accrue an enormous amount of debt and then find something that's actually better for them. Instead, the incentive is to keep these students on no matter what. So we do need to raise standards, but we need to also think about how we've encouraged competition, how we've just encouraged metric chasing, and how the entire system mitigates against getting actually a good education.
But Kevin, I mean, let's be honest about this. This is about what, giving people loans that they then don't pay back. Mm-hmm. This is what's at the heart of this situation, right?
Exactly.
So then that leads me to question: well, who should pay for someone to go to university?
Taxpayer, because it's a really. I was accused of being the miserable one earlier by Shouty Michael there, but actually I'm the one who's happy now, right? Because if you look at this story, universities are a great British success story. I think it's great that more kids from the backgrounds it sounds like most of us are from on this panel today, with 28% of kids of 18-year-olds from the most disadvantaged areas applying compared to 10 years ago. That's a great thing. And it has to be paid for through general taxation, and it's good. I see this as much more from a glass half full perspective than colleagues who are, a bit upset about the fact that half of kids now go to uni.
Well, no, I think a much fairer system would be to have fewer kids go to uni, but they don't actually have to accrue the debt. They get it paid for, but on the basis they've got academic outstanding achievement, and thus it ensures those that do go are getting a degree that actually helps them in the workplace and get a better paid job, and it ensures that they, by achieving academically, don't then come out with the debt. Surely that's a fairer way than bundling everyone with debt and saying, isn't that great?
But the debt doesn't get paid back, does it? It doesn't have to be.
Well, of course you pay it back. That's why it's debt. It's student debt.
If you listen to what I just said, a large number of students end up not paying this back, which is Michelle's point, because that you have to earn over a certain threshold. So
I haven't gone to uni, I do understand, but you do still pay it back, don't you?
Well, Adam is a student, and he has emailed in and says, Michelle, as a student, I do feel there needs to be an assessment of how many people are entering higher education. However, if we're going to implement such a policy like the one proposed, we also, and I think this is a very good point you raise here, Adam, we need to ensure that there are good quality jobs for individuals without degrees. Currently, too many jobs that don't require degrees or shouldn't require degrees do. And if this remains the case, too many individuals will have their job prospects significantly damaged at the age of 16. Adam, I think you've hit on a very crucial point, because jobs that you used to be able to leave school and do with, I don't know, GCSEs or whatever. So many jobs now have lowered the kind of level at which they request a degree. And it's absolutely bonkers to me, because there are so many jobs that simply request a degree for requesting a degree's sake, but they don't need one in order to fulfil that job properly. Ashley?
Yeah, we're just deflecting problems of the broader economy onto the education system, onto higher education. We do this with a huge range of issues at all levels of education. The fact is, university has become a holding centre for a huge range of people for which the economy has no use.
Ashley, are you serious? Have you just called unis a holding centre in the style of a prison or an asylum camp?
No, I mean...
a holding centre?
Oh, please. I mean, economically, there isn't any use for these people, so it doesn't matter what they do. They go to university because there's nothing else for them. Now, I am obviously going to be an advocate of a high-quality education. What I'm saying is what mitigates against getting a high-quality education is deflecting the problems of society back onto education, so that its main purpose is something always beyond itself.
But isn't it great that more people are getting, the chance to go to uni, that life experience, Isn't that a good thing?
I absolutely think it is, if that's what you want to do. But I find that there are a lot of students who are there and they don't actually want to be there.
Well,
and that's unfortunate.
Well, you want the people that are going to uni to actually get a benefit from it ultimately, not just so you can say, oh, look how many people are going. Otherwise, you might as well say every child should go if you think that's the right way forward, which would seem a bit of a bizarre thing to say.
Well, Steve has emailed in saying, it seems to me, Michelle, that students don't go to university for an education. They go for a party for the next 3 or 4 years.
I had a great
as an
time,
alternative
that's
to
important too. That's
it's an expensive party, though. That's what I would say. Certainly, Susan says, Michelle, I'm so glad that my son went for a joinery apprenticeship and he's nearly qualified after 3 years. She goes on to say, you shouldn't even be allowed in uni unless you pass your GCSEs, English and maths. And she points out that you're able to resit those GCSEs. And I have to say, I did an apprenticeship actually when I was, 16. I didn't go to university. And it was the best thing I think I've ever done, because I got my NVQs, as they were then, and I got about £30 a week, which to me at the time, I thought I was minted, I tell you. And then I have to say, I went on to earn a lot more money than the friends that I knew at early 20s. If you compared our salaries, I massively out-earned them. And didn't have to really pay for the privilege. I've got to say, lots of you talking about vocational training, completely agree with you, and that's one of the points we've just been referencing there. Anyway, I think I'm going to take a quick break. Oh, no, I'm not, actually. I was going to take a quick break, but no, I'm not. So I'm going to talk to you about Scotland. Teachers, social workers and police in Scotland have been told to respect the privacy of children, get this, as young as 13 years old, who engage in underage sexual activity and that their parents should not be informed of it. The Child Protection Guidelines emphasise that sexual activity between children aged 13, 14 and 15 is illegal, but that confidentiality should generally be maintained by the public sector staff when it has taken place in a safe and mutually respectful relationship. I mean, it's not the first time controversial decisions have been made by the SNP in relation to children. Last year, they announced that guidance that children as young as 4 would be able to change their gender at school without parents' consent. The guidance tells teachers not to question a child who says that they want to transition to live as a boy or a girl and instead ask for their new name and pronouns. And don't forget as well, there's been a whole kind of census, a sex survey that many people are calling it, that's kind of ongoing as we speak, that's very controversial, to put it mildly, that asks a whole host of what some people would say bizarre questions aimed at school children, asking them things like, have they had oral sex? Have they had anal sex? I mean, goodness gracious me. Kevin, what do you make of all this?
Well, it feels to me that the SNP are quite out of touch, I think, with broader public attitudes, both not just in Scotland, but broader in the country. And I think that it's just, some of these developments are just unhelpful. I think they challenge the legal age of consent, which is, I think, at 16 in a settled place across the country. The just general trend, also asking young people about, gender and identity. There is increasing evidence that and numbers of people who take decisions on their gender and identity issues and then come to regret that. So I'm really sceptical of it, and I think, the SNP are going to find themselves paying an electoral price, I think, if they don't adjust some of these policies and get more in line with what people actually think.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say there's been quite a lot of fury about some of this stuff. There's been protests. I think there's another protest planned. I think it's for this weekend as well. Ashley?
I think probably the most disturbing aspect of this is the continued desire to divide families, to divide parents from children. And I think this is really down to a failure on the part of government, a long-standing failure to solve a huge range of social issues. So what they do is they continually deflect it onto the parents. Oh, why do we have this issue? It's the parents, it's the parents. And so when you start to construct parenting in general as a social problem, it's not surprising that you start to go into schools and start to say, well, we won't tell your parents, right? Because it's actually the parents that are holding back progress. It's actually the parents that are causing all these issues. And I think, that really alienates the electorate. This is what happens when you're insulated from democratic processes. Insulated from democratic processes, not not solving social problems, you start thinking every social problem can be solved by social engineering. And you create the situation where you are undermining parental and child relationships. And nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. People wonder why, like, the working class is alienated from the left. Just read these stories.
But that's what I was going to question. Like, where is this coming from? Like, who is sitting there kind of dreaming up this stuff? I mean, when I read and talk about 4-year-olds being able to basically, I mean, I've got a little boy, as regular viewers will know. He's not yet 4, but if he was 4, I absolutely would not appreciate him going to school, telling a teacher that actually he's a girl and he wants to be known as Sharon from now on, and they've got to respect that. I would not be happy with that. Michael?
This is all absolute crackpot stuff. And I mean, imagine you're a parent, you find out the teachers knew this was going on. I mean, we've seen some shocking cases in this country of abuse, of grooming, and what they're going to put teachers in a situation where they can know this sort of stuff's going on and not telling the parents. I think it's absolutely insane. And again, I question, there's zero public support for this. Who on earth would support this? So why is this agenda being pushed? I find it deeply disturbing.
Yeah, and I have to say, just to give a right of reply, so to speak, a Scottish Government spokesman said the following. This non-statutory guidance, this is talking, by the way, about what I just mentioned, the 13-year-olds having their privacy respected if they're in what they think is a safe and respectful relationship. In response to that, what they're saying is this non-statutory guidance does not conflict in any way with the Sexual Offences Act 2009, which maintains the age of consent at 16. The law continues to make clear that society does not encourage sexual intercourse in young people under 16. It does not, however, follow that there are child protection concerns in all cases. Overriding confidentiality must be justified and proportionate, taking into account the nature and probability of risk to the young person and/or others. The child's wishes and feelings must be heard and taken into account. Kevin, your response to that?
Well, that doesn't wash. You've picked out the really good quote from the spokesperson, but to say that the non-statutory guidance does not in any way conflict with legislation that sets the age of consent at 16, it doesn't wash really, because anything coming out of an official institution implies backing from said institution that they actually are now piling in behind this new guidance, and I think it's. I think there's probably a consensus on this panel that, I don't suspect there's a single person who voted for the SNP in Scotland that put the X on their ballot paper with a view to achieving this sort of policy change. And I think that they will be held to account for that, because it's just not, I don't feel, a priority for the vast majority of people there.
Well, tell me, if you're watching and you're in Scotland, is this what you voted for? In fact, actually, would it be what you voted for again when you get your next opportunity? And by the way, when this particular guidelines talk about, if there's a relationship taking place, I quote, within a safe and mutually respectful relationship, I've got to say this makes no sense to me, because if it is illegal to be sexual, have sex, let's call it what it is, with a child that is not 16, then how can you possibly, if you are indeed having sex with a child that is 13, how can that be a safe and mutually respectful relationship? Because I've got to be honest, to me, that sounds like paedophilia. Am I wrong?
Well, I think actually we can cause a lot of problems. I mean, if you're not realistic about the fact that young people do have sex, and that the age differences may be actually slight. We might be picturing something else going on. I think the issue is the explicit desire, and you see this a lot, to say, oh, well, we want to leave the parents out of this. So it's just another thing where, the parents, they will never understand. You saw this with jabs for young people as well, where it was like, immediately, before there was even a poll, it was like, should we allow young people to get jabs without telling their parents? It was just assumed that the parents were going to be backwards and young people are the future and everything. And actually, young people, it transpired, were more wary of jabs than their parents were. It's just, that's the issue here. It actually can be logical to not make a fuss if we've got like a 15-year-old and a 16-year-old who are having sex, and that it happens. But I think the issue is pushing parents out of the situation. I think the SNP has a history of doing that, history of problematizing parents and breaking down the family and seeing the family as a place where terrible things happen, when actually most people see it as their haven in a heartless world.
Goodness me, well, as a new parent, I mean, what on earth have I brought my son into? That is the question that I ask myself on occasion, I can tell you. Anyway, I've been asked to make it clear to you that apparently this guideline doesn't allow paedophilia in any way, shape or form. So there you go. Anyway, I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk to you about Canada and Trudeau. I mean, I've spoken about this frequently, but what on earth is that guy doing, or has he been doing, and why? Have people not stood up to him? That is a question that I can't help myself but ask.
Coming up on Dan Wootton Tonight, the man who rocked number 10 by resigning in protest of hardline COVID policies, former Brexit Minister Lord David Frost, gives valuable insight into the decision-making in Westminster as my lockdown inquiry continues. As the Queen struggles following her positive test, have the royals been shaken, or is it business as usual within the firm? Royal expert Robert Jobson joins me for Crown Jewels. Plus, as lefty journalist Emily Maitlis steps down from the BBC, I'll get the view of columnist extraordinaire Rod Liddle, who she accused of being racist in one of her many impartiality breaches. And as ever, I'll break down the day's top stories with my superstar panel, the Daily Mail columnist Amanda Platel, political commentator Daisy McAndrew, and social media activist Adam Brooks. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, welcome back to Dewbs & Co with me, Michelle Dewberry. Lots of reaction, I can tell you, on that last topic. Jean says the SNP are so out of touch with everything they touch. She says they need to leave our children alone. There you go. David says, in his opinion, the SNP seem to have a fixation with our children. The latest issue, he says, is disgusting. And he says that parents need to be making their voices heard. Well, there you go. If you're in Scotland, I mentioned a few things there, but I know there's been a lot of different things going on. Let me know your thoughts on them. Just a quick reminder for anyone listening, not watching, as to who my panel is tonight. We've got Michael Heaver, who's the political commentator, Kevin Craig, who's a Labour councillor and CEO of PLMR, and the sociologist at Swansea University, Ashley Frawley. Now, the House of Commons in Canada has backed the government's decision to impose emergency powers to deal with weeks-long protest blockades against the COVID restrictions. The motion passed with 185 votes to 151 on Monday. And over the weekend, of course, police have cleared the final kind of protest sites in Ottawa on streets around Parliament Hill. Now, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, as many of you will be familiar with, invoked the Emergencies Act early last week. The powers, it basically allowed Trudeau a whole suite of things, things like the ability to freeze bank accounts of the protesters, among other measures. Now, I found this. I mean, I'm going to start with you, Ashley, because you are indeed Canadian.
I am, yeah.
What a treat to have you with us. Now, I found this entire thing really quite disturbing, actually, the way that Trudeau, in my mind, has completely overstepped, acted like somebody that's quite deranged, in my opinion. I think what he's been doing with these protesters is completely wrong. But what's your view on it all?
Yeah, I mean, I've been writing about this for the last few weeks, and I think, and actually for some time I've published on this as well, I think Trudeau is a very good example of what we call kindly power or kindly authoritarianism even, where we give leaders a free pass to do all sorts of things, so long as they use the right buzzwords, promise to act on behalf of the vulnerable. But actually, I think this is just a kind of therapeutic rehashing of a very old attempt to exert control by encouraging people to be fearful of something and promising to protect. And this is what, dictators have done. They big up a threat and then they promise to keep you safe. It's like safety has become the new law and order in a way. We saw this with COVID and we're seeing this now. Trudeau did everything he could to smear the protesters as white supremacists. The thing is, I'm Ojibwe. I'm obviously a mix of Indigenous Canadian and white. But my family, the Indigenous side of my family, was part of the protests. And in fact, my aunt organized some of her people in her area to go down to Ottawa. And they were definitely not going to be walking around with like Nazi flags and all of this sort of thing. And what were they fighting for? They were fighting for the same thing that a lot of people actually want, which is self-determination. That's what Indigenous people want. And an end to surveillance. Indigenous people are some of the most surveilled people in Canada. Our kids get taken away in huge numbers because we're just being watched constantly. And that's what the truckers want too. They want an end to the COVID surveillance. They want an end to, they want to be able to make choices about what they'll do with their bodies. And Trudeau just smeared them, bigged them up as this huge threat, and then used that as a reason to come down hard and to take away freedoms. I mean, he's photogenic, it's kindly, but it is kindly power. It's a way of justifying taking away democracy, taking away civil rights, but we give it a pass because it's nice. Kevin?
Well, it's democracy. Basically, the Canadian people, and I feel okay commenting on a Canadian issue as you were commenting earlier on issues here, but I do obviously respect the fact that you're a Canadian national. But it's democracy, right? Parliament voted for it. Parliament was being blockaded. People didn't like government policy. People were being harassed. Billions of dollars were being wasted. I work very closely with people around the world, and friends in Canada say it is a relief now that the government has taken strong action and solved the situation. The great thing is this is beautiful, Michelle. It was a vote in Parliament, and if the
what
people,
was beautiful?
The vote, it was democracy in action.
Oh
right?
my gosh! It's democracy in action to remove the right to protest, to freeze people's bank accounts.
There's no right.
Okay. Look.
No, I haven't finished. Because I let you go, and I disagreed with loads of what you said. So sorry. It's basically if Parliament votes for something there, if Canadians don't like it at the next election, they can make their voices heard.
At the next election.
Democracy is not confined to elections. I'm afraid.
Right.
When you vote for someone, you don't say, "Oh, that's it. My say is done. Now you just
Canada was being held
over
to
me."
ransom by people who didn't like government policy. Lots of people who don't like the government's policy here can't stop the country functioning, right?
If you ask me, the people that are being held to ransom is not the government. It is the people that are being told, have an injection of something that you don't want or you will not be able to work. That, for me, is wrong. Michael?
I must say, I'm very proud to be English and very grateful that I'm living in England because obviously we're taking away the restrictions while we see authoritarian regimes across the world. And I just want people to consider this. I mean, imagine, for instance, if Donald Trump, as US president, had taken these measures whereby they were going to start freezing bank accounts. I mean, I saw a report before we came on air. Apparently, a woman who donated, she wasn't even there, she donated towards the blockade, the protest, the freedom convoy, and she's had her bank account frozen. So apparently this is happening now to people that aren't even actually physically going there. And you can see the direction, the authoritarian direction this is going down. Very worrying, and I'm very proud to be living in England.
Ashley, final word to you as the Canadian on this.
I will admit that it is extremely divisive in Canada, extremely divisive. But I think what's happened is that we are ceding the demand for freedom and self-determination to the right. And I think that actually that used to be a left-wing value. I am a left-winger. I wanted to engage with people. I just interviewed Gord McGill, one of the truckers on our YouTube channel, Sublation Media, and I thought he was great. He's totally self-taught, autodidact. That's the image of the worker that people used to love, like reading and trying to understand the world. And all the comments underneath are just writing him off. Well, what do you expect? Of course, the vacuum's going to get filled.
Well,
by
I would have told you. I'll tell you what I would have expected. Actually, more Western leaders to actually come out and condemn some of the goings-on that's been happening in Ottawa.
He's just doing what they would like to do.
But get this, I'll tell you someone who has called it out. Listen to this. The China Embassy, Ottawa, has tweeted the following. Over the past few days, the Canadian police used pepper spray, stun grenades, as well as batons to violently disperse the Freedom Convoy demonstrators that had dominated downtown Ottawa. The Canadian government called the demonstrators a threat to democracy. But back in 2019, when radical elements assaulted the police and wantonly disrupted public order in Hong Kong, the Canadian side asserted that it will stand up loudly and clearly for human rights all around the world, and wantonly criticised, maligned and smeared the Hong Kong police force. In the eyes of some people in Canada, similar protests and demonstrations should be referred to differently in different places. In Hong Kong, they are human rights movements, but in Canada, they are a threat to democracy. Such stark double standard is unacceptable. Now, I've got to say, Justin Trudeau, when even the Chinese embassy is calling you out about human rights, then you know you might be doing something wrong. And I would say, and I can hear Kevin, he's not happy about any of this, but I'm going to have the final word on it. And my final word is shame, actually, on all of the leaders that haven't condemned some of what is being wholly unacceptable happening in Canada. That is all we've got time for tonight. Kevin is not happy about that. He's got lots more to say, but he'll have to save it for another day. Thank you very much to all of my panel, and thank you to you at home for your company tonight. I'll see you tomorrow.
Hello, I'm Luke Meyer with your weather forecast. Over the next 24 hours, we've got snow and lightning across Scotland. That's going to be the main feature of our weather. And for all of us, it is going to be turning a lot colder. This cold front is sinking its way southwards across the UK, bringing much colder air. And where we've got this occluded front, that's where we're going to see some frequent and heavy showers with the risk of lightning. So let's take a look at the picture through Wednesday evening. Got some heavy rain on the cold front as it sinks its way through England and Wales. Some lively bursts of rain to come for a time. The colder air is coming in behind, so it's across Scotland and Northern Ireland where the weather warning is in place that we'll see frequent snow showers. We could see as much as 10 to 20 centimetres building up over the hills and mountains of Scotland. Temperatures sub-zero and feeling a lot colder in that wind. And they'll continue through much of the day. Those frequent showers pushing their way in as the rain clears away from southeastern areas. Elsewhere then, brightening up through the day, but further showers will push their way through. There'll be a mixture of rain, sleet, hail and snow across the country. But as I say, the most frequent snow showers likely to be across Scotland and Northern Ireland. Brisk winds as well means blizzards across those mountains. So some tricky conditions here. Temperatures a lot lower than recent days, and it stays cold and wintry through the first part of Thursday night. We'll see this another feature coming southwards, so we could see some snow over the Pennines, perhaps North Wales. But later on into the small hours of Friday, we'll start to see those winds easing down. The skies will clear, showers will tend to become fewer and further between. So a touch of frost first thing on Friday morning. Lots of sunshine out there, though, on Friday morning. Still a few showers in the mix, but they'll be easing their way off into the North Sea. And for most of us, under a ridge of high pressure through Friday, it looks to be a much calmer day. Light winds, temperatures not faring too bad, still on the chilly side. But I think as we go through the day, there'll be plenty of sunshine. And it stays dry across the south. Chance of rain further north over the weekend. Goodbye.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows. Every day, we ask the questions that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News.